Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to Web3 Warriors, episode 123, featuring Serge, aka ArtSerge, who is an artist with a lot of NFT creations and a lot of work on the blockchains across Ethereum and Tezos and Bitcoin. Welcome, Serge. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, hi, David. Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks. Thanks for asking me on. Cheers. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you joining, and I'm really looking forward to learning a bit more about the inspirations behind your art and a lot of your experiences as someone who has actually minted artwork on different blockchains, and you can kind of speak to some of the differences and why you've chosen to, have your art in these different corners of the blockchain. So that's going to be really exciting. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. My name is David Krome, aka Krome in the metaverse. This is Web3 Warriors. We had been taking a little bit of a hiatus at the end of 2025 as we are looking to kind of readjust the focus of the show. The Web3 Warriors always started with a focus on the creator economy and the belief that really blockchain, peer-to-peer transactions, the ability to mint your artwork or any creation, 3D creations on the blockchain and be able to sell it to supporters is one of the biggest values of blockchain technology, really, and crypto technology more broadly. And so that's always kind of been the crux of the show, Web3 Warriors. And, we have definitely taken angles looking at crypto companies more broadly, even trading platforms. We've talked to people that are in decentralized science and decentralized banking. We've had conversations around stable coins, being able to help with remittances and sending money around the world. All of these things are very important as well, but we really do want to return to the art and creator focus here in 2026. So that's what we're going to be doing, and really am grateful to all of the listeners that stay connected to us and those who have reached out, during this kind of hiatus, just wanting to check in and see what we're working on. So that's really what we've been doing, just kind of reevaluating and connecting with a lot of the artists in the community and kind of getting their feedback as well. There is a lot of hype around, the crypto trading side of things. There's a lot of hype around stable coins and regulations that are changing for the banks and all of that. And that's all very important. But really at the base level of, what we see happening in Web3 and crypto and really the technology more broadly, there's a lot of, I would say, the narrative being lost around the kind of peer-to-peer potential for crypto. And so we want to make sure that we're not losing track of that. We want to make sure that we're continuing to center art and creators and entrepreneurs as well, but those that are actually creating innovative solutions and most importantly, creating opportunities for people who, maybe create art outside of the blockchain and don't understand, the value that is here. And so we've got Serge here to talk about his experiences putting art on the blockchain. We've talked to, of course, many other artists over the over 100 episodes that we've had here with Web3 Warriors. And so that's going to be the focus. But also in 2026, we're going to be rolling out a bit of a new news program. So a monthly, it's going to start with monthly, but eventually looking at weekly news, what's happening in Web3, what are the NFT platforms that are succeeding and finding a lot of success for artists and creators, what are those that are maybe closing their doors, like we just heard recently with Rodeo as one platform that is actually decided to close their doors after they didn't really weren't finding the success and the revenue that they needed. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. There's going to be a news focus. There's going to be a creator focus. And importantly, we really want to be speaking to the value of everyday people being able to jump on the blockchain and actually create revenue for themselves, connect with like-minded individuals, and create opportunities for themselves. So thank you again for tuning in to Web3 Warriors, and we'll keep focusing on that. So with that out of the way, really looking forward to chatting with you, Serge, and thank you again for joining us today. Before we really jump into your different NFT collections, which will be showing up here on the screen, can you give us a little bit of background on what really brought you to Web3, what brought you to crypto, how long have you been creating NFTs in the space, and yeah, just a little bit of history on you. So thank you for joining and share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Dave. I suppose really I came to NFTs like quite a few people in 2021 because I'd gone out, I graduated art school. I've been selling my art on different formats, print on demand platforms, that sort of thing. And I heard about this NFT thing, and it was at the height of the Beeple gold rush, and there was a lot of attention on that globally. And his incredible Sotheby's sale garnered a lot of attention. So I thought, yeah, I'll give this a crack.
Nice.
And and at the same time, it coincided with a spoken social media platform, which was Clubhouse, where the two kind of went hand in hand. That this seemed to be the way to do it. Like, you would jump into rooms, you'd mint your artwork, you'd get your head around it. Everybody would be talking in this crazy lingo that took a while to get you up to understand. You know, it'd be like gobbledygook at first. So yeah, that's what really that's what drew me to it. And then, you know, I got into it from there. I started making friends and joining rooms and that sort of thing, trying to get my name about. And, you know, I met lots of nice people, many of your previous guests, like Kane and Jigar and NFTP and Low Sleazy, Clip Dad, people like that. It was Mark Craig was doing a lot then as well. So it was nice little scene going on. But that's really what brought me into it, because it just seemed like a really nice platform where artists could sort of skip the middlemen and promote their art to an audience in a way that had never been seen before.
Nice. And were you very like familiar with crypto or Bitcoin or anything before kind of the art conversation and the Beeple explosion?
Not at all. Didn't have a clue. You know, like a lot of people, just doing research around it. Everybody's trying to latest YouTube, you know, episodes and gleaning information. Talking to each other was very interesting, because I think that's the thing with these spoken social audio, is you get information very, very rapidly. You can pick it up super quickly when someone's talking. So that was really the scene then. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And you mentioned you've really studied art, and so, you know, you come to the art scene from, you know, a fairly experienced and educated perspective. I'm curious, like, when looking at kind of, I guess, the marketing approach and the way that, you know, art has been handled historically, as someone who's kind of studied that, right? And the way that, like you say, the Beeple explosion and kind of the realization that you can cut out middle people and be able to sell your art directly to people right on the blockchain. Do you think that that's something that the broader art kind of industry has acknowledged? And is it something that, you know, that gave you kind of, I don't know, an advantage because you kind of understood how the art industry worked pre-NFTs, and then, you know, the difference that NFTs made? How does your education impact that?
I wouldn't say it helped in the slightest.
No doubt.
Other than making art, you know, like, you know, I'm used to the process of making art. I think it's a completely different world, and it evolved as well. You know, it went from people not really, a couple of big names, then, like I said, spoken social audio, a lot of people helping each other out, buying each other's works, networking was good. And then I'd say the mid hype of the Ethereum period, it was just like crazy, psyoped, unpredictable, yeah, sort of scene. It was
it was wild.
It was wild. You know, I don't know, some of those projects blowing up, people spending absolute fortunes, and then they wouldn't be talked to. You know, you wouldn't see them a couple of weeks later. So it was absolutely like the Wild West. You know, it was yeah, crazy times.
No doubt, no doubt. And so, am I right to assume that Ethereum was kind of your first foray into the NFTs, or were you was Tezos kind of around the same time, or that came later?
No, it was Ethereum first. It was when OpenSea was the dominant platform at the time. Yeah, so that, and then there was a bit of a breakthrough in that, and I made a few collections on Ethereum. Then it was like the odd gobs and just bits and bobs there.
Nice.
And then I got into Tezos around about the same time, 21, and this is the time when there was a platform called TicketNunk. Which seemed really cool, and there was some really nice groups of people talking about it. And you know, you would mint it. It was much cheaper as well. It was a much cheaper situation where you could mint your artwork for, you know, a couple of dollars, rather than when you first did Ethereum contracts, that you could be paying quite a lot of money for transacting,
right,
and putting your arts on the, you know, your token on the blockchain. So this was fun, and we used to have rooms, and people used to shout, "Show us your numbers," and because you'd get an object number, you'd sort of shout them out, and everybody would look and peruse. And there was a chap called Mark Craig who was very sort of great at leading rooms at that time. And there was a really nice group of people who sort of gathered around that time, which was interesting. And Hickik Nunk had more of a sort of rebellious, it felt more avant-garde, it felt more from the people upwards rather than the corporation down, which was really nice. And that was quite a fun time.
Yeah, and would you say that Tezos still kind of has that vibe as far as like definitely being very kind of grassroots connected?
I would definitely say Tezos is driven by a grassroots, directive. I think the people who are really driving that platform forward, blockchain forward, especially artistically, are the artists. And there's still people innovating on it at the moment, which is really good. Fully on-chain NFTs and stuff.
For sure. I know they did just release their Etherlink, I believe they call it, where they are able to now actually do some conversions to Ethereum, and this has brought in, I guess, some new DeFi opportunities. And I know there was some, of that kind of stuff happening already on Tezos. But to your point, I've always said Tezos could only be an art platform and only used for art exchange and buying art from artists and, trading. And it would be fine, that would be like enough for the blockchain, even if it didn't do anything else. If you're comparing it to like an Ethereum or a Solana, where of course, DeFi is probably 80-90% of the transaction volume on the chain, right? Whereas I'd be curious to see how much the art community, what the percentage of transaction volume it is on the Tezos chain. It's got to be a little bit higher, maybe even around the 30 or 50%, who knows? But yeah, that's an interesting point. And you do have amazing work on both Object and the Tezos blockchain, as well as your Ethereum. Taking a look back at the Ethereum, I have the Odd Gobs collection up on the screen here, and I really love the kind of vintage vibe of it. Like, I don't know how you would describe kind of the color scheme that you've used, and definitely has a bit of a esoteric vibe as well. You want to give us a little bit of just maybe a artistic background on the Odd Gobs, as that was your initial foray into Ethereum and NFTs, and obviously it looks like you're fairly successful there, I guess 5 years ago now, selling many of these Odd Gobs. Yeah, what's the story behind them?
Well, that was basically, I thought, I'll just go with my strengths, because I've always been an illustrator, so they're all drawn in by hand first, and I thought, you might as well, because they were essentially monochromatic illustrations. I love working in monochrome. I thought I'll give them this sepia, aged parchment look, and it works with it, with the sort of the characters and an oldie worldy, but they're a little bit, edgy as well. Like Master Toe Scratch is a jujitsu goblin with big toenails. There's one's got a massive spliff. They're a bit weird like that. Yeah, I thought just go with your strengths there. And Odd Gobs being like OGs, it was an old collection. I just thought, yeah, it's cool. Go for that.
Nice. And so was this how long before you decided to mint this on the blockchain did you have this collection created?
Oh, I had some of those illustrations for 11 years before I
wow.
Decided to do it. And then I did a few bespoke as the collection moved on. But I thought it's a good opportunity to show these illustrations, because I've used a lot of these themes in the past anyway. I had a bit of a canon to call back on,
Yeah,
why not?
Very cool. And, like you say, the fact that some of these go back like 11 years and then, you were able to find use for them, put them on the blockchain and, sell them peer-to-peer to collectors on the chain is pretty amazing. So how are you feeling about kind of the Ethereum ecosystem these days? Are you still minting fairly regularly on Ethereum, or what's kind of the sentiment that you're feeling these days?
I would say I'm more of a blockchain butterfly, to be honest with you. I like to sort of move around where the action is to some extent, and as much energy as I have to do that. So I haven't really minted much on Ethereum in a while. I think the thing that was a real shocker for me was when, I can't remember what the platform was, but it got rid of the royalties on chain. We realized that the royalties, is it Blur?
It was optional. Yeah. Well, Blur did it first, and then OpenSea kind of followed them, and then they caught a lot of flack, and then they made it optional. Yeah. So they were like, okay, we won't remove them, but you'll have the option whether you want to pay the royalty or not. So yeah, it was Blur that really messed it up initially. I think they definitely can take a lot of the blame.
So that was an odd period. That kind of like made me slow down and think again about that. Was because I remember it was like because we always thought the royalties were like locked in.
Right. It was on chain. It couldn't be changed, right? It was smart contract. It was guaranteed.
Yeah, but then it turns out these smart contracts could be edited and later. So that kind of knocked the wind out of my sails a little bit. And then afterwards, people were doing a lot of zero free mints and things like that. And I always think that's a bit of a worrying sign when people start putting out free mints. It's like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? It's yeah, I moved away from it. I did a little bit of stuff on Manifold. I thought that was a very interesting sort of option you could do, where you could have your own smart contract and not rely on a big platform,
Right.
which was really, really cool. So I did a little bit on there, but then I predominantly moved off to Tezos, I'd say.
Nice. Yeah, the Manifold is a nice option, and shout out to manifold.xyz. Anybody looking to learn how to create their NFTs directly onto the blockchain with their own custom smart contract, I definitely recommend Manifold as a nice option because they make it fairly user-friendly, and you have a little bit more control over where it's going and how it's being sold, and all the royalties, importantly. So yeah, good point there. So not minting as much with the Ethereum blockchain as much these days. But what's your thoughts on the actual NFT market? Like, do you hear from a lot of people that are still minting over on Ethereum? Do you find that, obviously meme coins and stable coins even, and kind of the more crypto trading narrative has kind of taken over there? And what do you think is maybe the solution to that? Or how would you like to see Ethereum evolve from here?
I think these things are cyclical. It's interesting, isn't it? It seems to sort of go, one will pump, others will follow. Mainly Bitcoin pumps, others will follow. And then you have a meme coin phase, and then there'll be a sort of an art phase. And it seems to go cyclically like that. But in terms of Ethereum, I think it's quite interesting. I think some of the layer 2 solutions are good, like base, things like that. I think there's a lot. I think we're at a very interesting time where layer 2 solutions are doing a lot more. I think that the reason why I've moved to other things with more of a permanent storage is because I think this is still needs to be thought about in a big way. That because sometimes some of these old Ethereum platforms, they go to dead links, so that's why I liked, it's happening. Galleries will shut down, and their personal storage that the token's linked to, it's not being paid for anymore. So you get dead links. So that's why I liked the Ordinals and fully on-chain solution. I don't think it's always that way. I think Arweave's really good, so the storage platform, and it's well supported, but I think it needs to be considered definitely for your user and customer.
Arweave being the cloud provider that is a little bit more reliable for the art, you mean, to keep the files on chain or keep the files on the internet and make sure the links don't die long term, right?
100%. You didn't buy a dead link, did you?
No, definitely not. Yeah.
So it just needs to be considered by everyone, really. But I think we're in an interesting time. I think there's a lot more. What do they call it? Vibe coding, and there's the technological boom. So there's a lot more potential for the market. I think overall the kind of morale and public opinion's a bit low.
Yeah.
But like I say, just think these things are cyclical. So hopefully there'll be a spin back.
Yeah. The morale is definitely seems to be a little bit off these days for the art scene, especially in Ethereum, I think. But yeah, like you say, it is definitely cyclical. And it's interesting because they have done a lot of things around the gas fees, to your earlier point, right? There was a time in those 2021 days where people were eating a lot of crazy fees just to be able to mint an NFT, like upwards of $50, even $100, or even way more if it was one of those, big high demand generative NFT collections that were coming out, right? So yeah, I think that's one thing that's going to be interesting if and when the next bull cycle for art on chain kind of hits. Is it going to be a lot more accessible? Like you said, the layer 2s are another kind of factor. Base is an interesting one where they really leaned heavily into the art and the creator economy for their first 2 years of existence. And just now in the last 2 months, we've been hearing that they're kind of pivoting away from as much creator support and again to that kind of stable coin and crypto trading side of the ecosystem. So that's going to be interesting. And then with layer 2s, I think again, going back to your other point, the solidity, reliability of the smart contracts is still in question, I think, right? Because there's not that direct kind of on-chain connection where there's this kind of layer 2, and how much actual sovereignty or like ownership do you have over a layer 2 token that is still reliant on the layer 1 to actually, be kind of functional, right? So I've always thought that was interesting. I'm a little bit leery. Like if it's a friend of mine doing something on base or somewhere, of course I'll consider buying it. But in general, I don't go to layer 2s for that reason, because I just think long term, this layer 2 goes belly up eventually. All of these NFTs are belly up too with it, right? So I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but that's my concern with the layer 2 collections. I don't know. Are you on layer 2 at all? Do you have many on base or anywhere?
No, none. I've just been thinking about it, but no, not yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see where they go, I guess. But yeah, definitely it is a solution as far as the gas fee conversation goes. But all right, cool. Thanks for sharing the insights there. I'm wondering, like you mentioned, Lo and Kane and NFTP and all these people that we've been connected to since 2021 and the heydays of Clubhouse, which I agree was amazing, and it was a really cool community. It is a cool community still, even though we've all splintered off into wherever we are, and Clubhouse apparently doesn't want us around anymore or something. But are you still connected to a lot of the artists? I know you still talk with TP here, and we reconnected through a space with TP and ourselves were on. But just in general, are you finding that most of the people are still doing something, still dabbling in the NFTs, or what's the sentiment out there from your own community?
I mean, I see a lot of the old faces from Clubhouse. I see some of them come in, let's say, for example, Pong, or I see Kane speaking, and I always enjoy listening to Kane speak. He's very amusing. But I think a lot of people, life changes, doesn't it? Have different priorities, and also if you think a lot of this was based, pre-COVID and COVID, that people didn't have much else to do than just go and spoke in social audio platforms and try and
that was part of it.
Especially when COVID, we got very popular, and so I guess a lot of the people have moved on. There's a few old OGs hanging around, but yeah, I think a lot of them have moved on, and I think that's like friends anyway, isn't it? You can't take your friends the whole journey,
right?
So I still go on Twitter Spaces, and I find different groups of people, and I think it's very important. I think a lot of the integrity of NFTs are actually in small communities.
Yeah.
I think so. A lot of the grifters have been shaken out of the mix now.
Yeah.
As the hype waves kind of is crested, and you're left with people just who are still into it for its own interest and for the art, etc., or just interested in crypto.
And with that, it's become a little bit more niche than it already was. I would say it was already kind of a niche interest and space, but definitely, like you say, the hype has gone down, and with it, a lot of the rug pullers and kind of nonsense has also quieted down a bit. But like you say, it's cyclical, and maybe when the hype comes back, those guys come back too, right? So it'll be interesting to see. But to your point, around the different kind of blockchains and being able to continue to stay active in the space. And how did you word it again? A blockchain butterfly, I believe, was what you mentioned. That's a pretty cool way of putting it. So I've personally been a little bit skeptical of the Bitcoin Ordinal conversation, even though I totally understand the whole idea that Bitcoin A has never failed, and B, the Satoshi, once it's minted on the chain, it's going to be there forevermore, essentially. So as far as the immutability conversation, I get it theoretically, but I guess where I have a difficulty kind of fully grasping it, it's like Bitcoin A was not meant really to be like an art NFT or an art exchange chain. Although art on Bitcoin is not new, that's not a new concept. However, having it directly right on the main chain is somewhat new, right? And that's what the ordinals did. And we saw after that became kind of an explosion, and a lot of ordinals are being minted directly on the Bitcoin network. Their fees skyrocketed, right? And their transaction time also kind of skyrocketed, where it's becoming a slower and more expensive kind of beast of a blockchain, which is similar to what happened with Ethereum during the hype days, right? And so there was a lot of back and forth on like, are they breaking Bitcoin? Like, is this what Bitcoin's supposed to be? And for that reason, I do have like 2 ordinals, both of which are connected to Kane Mayfield in one way or another. So, I don't have a huge collection on the Bitcoin chain yet. However, I see you have these really cool Borganal collection. And I think you've done other ordinal NFTs as well. But this is a really cool kind of chain, or a really cool collection that you've created here with little versions of Pepes that are Borgs. So before we get into the specific collection, I do want to hear, what's your kind of pitch for the Ordinals, and do you think that long term it is going to be a use case for Bitcoin that really sticks around?
Well, I got into it because my friend Clip Dad, who used to be in the Clubhouse rooms a lot, did a lot of early stuff. He said, "Come have a look at this," and I came into Ordinals. It was just like, it hadn't really been defined. It was like a village hall with a portable toilet in the corner and maybe a couple of chairs. And nobody knew what was going on. And it was nice like that. It was nice like that. And the premise was that this is a permanent storage. And I like that idea. I like the idea that you can put something on chain and it's not linking to anything because it is on chain and it can be called to, which was cool. It turns out that's not completely true. You can prune nodes, and at the moment there is a kind of fight between the Knots network. There's like a guy called Luke Dashier who says there should be no art on Bitcoin. I mean, you can entitled to your opinion, whatever.
Yeah.
I personally think it's a good use of it, as long as it doesn't slow down the blockchain, which it hasn't. If you look now, you can transact for the minimal sort of service fee. But I think in terms of permanence, it's really good. It's far, far, far less likely to disappear. I think that's more thing. It's not 100%, but it's really kind of unlikely in my opinion. So I think it's pretty cool. I think some of the shine's gone off it a little bit. Like all these things, this like waves and cycles.
The hype dies down a little bit.
Dies down.
And so the art,
yeah.
And if I'm correct, the art itself is like directly on chain, right? So where's the risk long term as far as it not somehow disappearing or something?
Well, I guess that you can. I mean, I'm not that technical, to be honest with you, but I guess they call it pruning nodes. So I think there's auto trackers to sense what kind of data's carried on a transaction that can be taken off, because it's it's a mirror of each node before, isn't it? I mean, like I said, I'm getting at me death now.
It's seen as a maintenance angle, and I have heard about the debates happening as far as like those who really want to kind of prune the art off of the Bitcoin blockchain. But I think it's more theoretical than anything, and it would be a lot of interesting attempts to kind of reverse things that are already on chain, which seems like a very messy thing to try to do. So specifically with the Borginals, share a little bit about this. I really love the kind of pop culture references and the connection with Pepe. I see there's a Bart Simpson version, there's a Mandalorian version, you got a Pharaoh, and I see that I think all or most of them have sold at decent prices in Bitcoin, right? So pretty successful launch for sure. Yeah, tell us a little bit about the story behind the Borginals and what is the kind of pitch, I guess, to the community, and how's that going?
Well, like I say, my mate Clip Dad, he said, "Come along and try this," and I went, "Yeah, I'll try that." And I'd done a little bit of work on Counterparty beforehand, and I really got into the whole Pepe culture that community is excellent at, and it's a very, very rich subculture. And I thought, this is cool. So, but I also like cyborgs, and I also like sort of pop culture. So I thought, make it half cyborg, half pop culture, half Pepe. I know that doesn't add up. And and to me, it was a joy, and also at the same time, in America, they were having these Borg parties in university campuses, which I think is just like a big barrel of beer. It's called a Borg or something. And they were drinking, and they had really cool names, like they were calling it Bjorn Borg, a million Borg puns, and every single one of my Borgs is a Borg pun.
Nice.
They will accept me now. So I thought, have a pun name, make them cool, make them relatable, a bit tech cyborgy and a bit Pepe, and just see how it goes. And because of I wasn't sure how it would land with people, I did little batches, and they were going really well. And then people were like, asking me to reserve them for them and stuff like that in the end, and went to auctions at the end. Half of it was maybe 30% were actually people saying, "Can you do this? Can you do this one? This
Oh,
one would be."
nice.
That was really nice.
People actually custom requested certain pop culture references.
Yeah, there were loads of pop culture references, which is really nice because as a creator, you never know what people want, really. You might be just disappearing up your own ley line, and you might not have an idea of what actually you want, and you're just being a wafty artist. So when you get people asking for stuff, then that's, so it was really nice, actually, and built a little bit of a community. So that was a really nice project for me, that one. I really
Very
enjoyed
cool.
that.
I like the Borg Runner one. I'm just bringing that up on the screen here. That's really cool. And the Borg yacht. You got the little Borg Basquiat. That's pretty cool too. Definitely, everyone should go check out the Borginals. It's available on Magic Eden there. So as far as platforms, like, how are you finding? I guess you use Magic Eden for a lot of your Bitcoin ordinals. How many other collections do you have on Bitcoin? And how do you find Magic Eden for a platform?
Oh, Magic Eden was great. I mean, essentially, it's the process of inscription was very convoluted at the start, I found. And it has limits, because if you're going to put it on chain, then you have to think very carefully about how much data you're going to put in your, into your inscription, your ordinal. So this was kind of how the ordinals developed as well, because small pixel art, I never did pixel art before, so I thought I'll turn my hand to it because suits the medium, and then I got to really like it, actually.
Nice.
By the end, just being really efficient with minimal with restrictions, use the restrictions. So that was the process. I've used I've got quite a lot of prints on Gamma, so I'd say midway through, about 2 years ago, they worked out that you can call things recursively from the blockchain, which is a very interesting premise. So then you're interacting with different bits. So you can make things like additions. So you can generate additions from one ordinal. You have an original and you can make additions. So I do like runs of 10 or 20 maximum as sort of additions. I don't like to do too many. So I've been using Try Gamma to do that, Gamma platform. And they've been really good. There's a guy there called Brett Hurth. And they've actually been really active in trying to get artists involved in like Nulture shows, physical versions of their artwork. So they've done a really good job of pushing it out of the blockchain and into the sort of art world as well, which I appreciate.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you find the art world is kind of respecting the ordinals similarly to the way they did the Ethereum NFTs? Is there a lot of successful examples of, I guess, like a gallery showcasing ordinals?
I mean, there's been a lot of these shows. I couldn't tell you because I've never been to them, because they're always in nice, warm, exotic places that I can't go to.
Of course.
But it looks good. It looks got a good response, and they're being displayed on big screens, and it looks very professional. And I appreciate being involved in those sort of things as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you still get to see your art, being showcased at these events, and being part of these Gamma collections. Yeah, that's awesome. So Gamma kind of made it easier for you to mint onto the Bitcoin blockchain, essentially.
Well, I mean, I use a third part. I kind of, there's many ways through it. It's constantly evolving, the process, and you're just finding new ways to do it, make it cheaper and more efficient for the artist to do this. But there's been some very interesting developments, like I said, because you can call other elements of the blockchain, or some people have like inscribed. I'm going off topics a little bit here, sorry, but they've inscribed like the P5JS library. I think it was, I've forgotten who did it. And so basically you can call that and make generative art, and it becomes a computational network, which is really interesting. I just draw stuff, really. I don't do all that techie stuff, but I think it's an interesting premise.
Awesome. Yeah, I just brought up your Gamma page for ArtSerge. So very cool work that you've got on here. Again, with these ones, a lot of them, most of them, all of them actually look hand-drawn. I guess some of them have a little bit of video in there as well, which is really cool. I'm looking at this dictator of entertainment. That's pretty impressive, man. Yeah. How do you decide like which art you're gonna mint onto Bitcoin, I guess in this case, as an ordinal? And do you have any concerns as far as like long-term tradability, saleability, just like the market in general? Like, let's say, because these are beautiful pieces, right? So let's say you mint them and the art market, you know, it's already gotten a bit quieter, but it continues to kind of go in that direction. And, you know, for whatever reason, Bitcoin Ordinals just don't take off and Gamma's got to shut down, whatever. I'm saying worst case scenario. This is really good art that you would then potentially lose, or at least wouldn't have out in the marketplace, right? Is that something that you're concerned about? Is it something you think about before you know, decide to mint an Ordinal? And maybe you just don't mind selling the art, the same art, on other platforms, which is completely your right to do. Just curious, you know, on your thoughts around that.
Yeah. I didn't realize we're allowed to do that now.
Pardon?
Are we allowed to do that? Like,
I mean, technically they still call it double minting, I think, but from what I gather, there's some, you know, you do minor tweaks and it's slightly different art technically, but it's still, you know, the same original piece. So I don't know. There's ways. It's up to you.
In answer to your question, for me, I think if anything, it's one of the more secure places to have your art. I've created a lot of these things specifically to go on to the Bitcoin Ordinals space, and it references a lot of the culture, it's kind of made bespoke for this. Some of the older ones, there's like a tree watercolor piece that I just wanted to put it up there. I think it's a nice place to have it stored. You know, at the end of the day, these all come from my own hand, and I still have the originals. I can, you know, and I'm the owner, I've got total rights. I can do what I want with them, essentially. But I think it's a good place for them to be. Yeah, you know, sometimes attention comes and goes, but you know, fingers crossed it'll keep getting the attention I think it should get.
Awesome.
And yeah, I just enjoy it.
That was very cool. I brought up the watercolor tree. It's beautiful. I can't even imagine how someone creates so much detail with watercolor, but that's really cool, man. Yeah, congrats. And 0.0002 Bitcoin. You can mint it on gamma.io. That's a pretty reasonable, just $20, $18 USD. You know, there you go. Yeah. You know, as I searched through Gamma, I was vaguely familiar with it. Like I said, I think I collected one of. There was the Ghostface Killa did a drop, right? And then Kane kind of helped promote it. But I thought it was cool that Ghostface was, you know, an actual Wu-Tang member putting some of his work on the Bitcoin blockchain. So I did collect it, and I remember they used Gamma for that mint. But other than that, I don't know that I've been on Gamma very much. But now as I just kind of browse through it, I'm like, I don't know why not, you know? I guess the other thing that I'm sure you've heard is the idea of I don't spend my Bitcoin. Any thoughts around that? Like, maybe that's been part of my calculus as well, where it's just really hard for me to justify spending Bitcoin on anything. Not that I don't love the art, but is that a hurdle, you think, for artists on the Bitcoin blockchain?
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a hurdle. I mean, at the end of the day, you can convert anything to anything anyway. You know, but I understand that. I understand people want to hodl. I mean, yeah, why not? But if you think the art's worth it, then I mean, it's totally up to you subjectively. You know, I still buy bits and bobs on the. I still spend my own Bitcoin and try and make Bitcoin. It's that creator economy, isn't it? But I did, you know, but I'm quite happy. I mean, some of those pieces spent me $300 to inscribe because I wanted it at high fidelity, and I think it's important. You know, especially as you're going into the world of more AI sort of synthetic artwork that's becoming easier and easier to make. I think actually recording things like watercolors and hand-drawn stuff as high a definition as you can stored to some sort of permanence is, for me personally, you know, quite important.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a good point, actually, because all of these do look like fairly high resolution. And to your earlier point, generally with Ordinals, you are quite limited on the size of the file. So is that not the case when you're working with Gamma and you have like a little bit more flexibility? Now, you mentioned the higher the resolution, the more you're paying essentially to mint it or inscribe it, as it's called with the Ordinals. Yeah, how do you get around that? And I guess that's the case. You just have to pay more and you're able to inscribe a bigger file essentially.
Yeah. Well, your maximum is 4 megabytes.
Okay.
But I've got really good at using Photoshop to condense as much data as possible whilst leaving fidelity. I've been trying to do that for a while. And you can do that in different ways. Less colors. smaller size. I like to keep them a fairly good size and trying to keep it as crisp as possible. But that's what it's going to cost you. And that's down to the artist. Do you want to do that, or do you not want to do that?
Yeah, that is a big decision to make. So how difficult is it, I guess, to recoup your investment? And is it something that you're concerned about, I guess, short term? Because it sounds like, you know, to mint some high resolution on Bitcoin, you're forking up, you know, a couple hundred, 300 per piece. And then obviously it takes time when you're selling them by, you know, $50, $100, even as low as $15 or $20 per piece to kind of recoup that. Just looking from a business perspective, is that something you're really concerned about it, or you see it as kind of a long-term investment and a long-term play, and as you sell them, you're getting Bitcoin back, so not too concerned about that?
I think I'm a bit of an impulsive dreamer. Do you know what I mean? I think everyone.
I think we all are in the NFT space, right? I think that's all that's left is the dreamers here.
I think I always think this one's going to be the banger. This is going to do it. You know what I mean? Sure. And you know, I would never do it if I couldn't afford it. You know, yeah. I wouldn't put myself in debt. You know, and and going back to your question, is you want to spend Bitcoin doing this? You know, so I balance these things out, and you know, if I was really worried about it, I wouldn't do it. But you know, it's a gamble. These things are a gamble, aren't they?
100%. Oh, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I really love the pieces on here. It's really cool. So it's making me feel like I'm missing out by not browsing on Gamma more often. So thank you for highlighting that. And that's gamma.io, GAMMA.io for all of our listeners. Go check it out. You can search up ArtSerge, ArtSerge, to find Serge's amazing work here. And yeah, really, really cool pieces. Taking a turn back to Tezos, as I think I did mention that I saw a really, really cool piece on here that I had to collect because it really captures so much of the zeitgeist of NFTs, you know, from the Pepe to the Tez wall that you've got on there, the Tez pole, I think we called it back in the day, as well as, you know, you got some graveyards to the dead apes and the RTFKT and the WAGMI and the Ethereum royalties. And of course, you got some Pepe featured in there. So the piece is called Meme Xerox Interventions. Give us a little bit of background on it. And I just think it's got so many layers. You've got text in there. You've got really cool visuals. Yeah, it's just a really, really beautiful piece that I had to buy. So I'd love to get just a little bit of background from you on how you create a piece like this and what kind of inspired it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the third in a series. The first one I did was called Meme Xerox Machine, and if you look at where the capitalizations are in the title, you'll see that's the date MMXX and your one IV, which is 2024. Oh, nice. So they're kind of like snapshots of the scene at the time. You know, as an artist navigating this sort of thing, it can be really frustrating, especially when you hear all these, you know, people are either grifters or sucking up or just trying to look cool and saying all these same terms all the time, and it can be really frustrating. So I kind of use my pen as a weapon to exercise these feelings. And in the first one, I really sort of riffed on Basquiat. I never tried to do a Basquiat piece before, and as I was doing it, I just felt really like, man, could feel something. You know what I mean? I tuning into his frequency in that.
Yeah, it's powerful. I love it. I definitely see the Basquiat influences.
And it's raw, and you can say what you want, and then you put words, you erode them, but they're still there. It was just, to me, it was just like trying to just take the kid gloves off, be a little bit venomous, speak truth as I saw it, and just reflect on the crypto scene as far as I could observe it from being in spaces and on Twitter and that sort of thing. So that's really my kind of mad punk observations of the crypto world, and generally just a flow of consciousness as well. I mean, I just go, and I find them so easy to do. Just blast it out. Just makes itself really.
I love the use of text. I mean, we don't see very much, at least a lot of the pieces that I collect, never really see kind of the use of text in this kind of really impactful and, you know, messaging something that actually resonates with anyone who's spent, you know, any significant amount of time in the NFT community. So I just thought it was a really cool way to incorporate text into your art. And so there's the visuals, but there are a lot of messages kind of strewn in there. And that's really cool. You said about the capitalizations and how they create the date of the art. So I went back and see the meme Xerox machine, the original one there as well. Yeah, just really, really fascinating, man. So when it comes to the Tezos, and at the top of one of these, I guess this is the original Xerox machine. It's got Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Tezos as kind of the kings of the NFT space.
Yeah.
How are you kind of working with Tezos right now? Are you doing a lot of drops on Tezos? And do you think that, you know, like we were talking about earlier with the kind of grassroots energy that exists in the Tezos community, is that market actually more alive than even the Ethereum or the Bitcoin one, would you say? Or how do you kind of approach the Tezos market?
I mean, I would, like I said, I'm a dad of two. I've got a day job. I'm really busy. Do you know what I mean? As much as I'd like to keep dipping my toes into everything, I just can't. So where I can, do you know what I mean? At the moment, I'm just being, pardon my domestic appliance. I'm mainly just focusing on Bitcoin. I still jump into the Tezos rooms, sort of spoken social audio, and listen to what's going on. But you know, I see people trying really hard to find a groove and to do things like fully on-chain Tezos, which they have done. There's a small group of fully on-chain, which is really cool, and they're driving a movement there. But you know, I remember when it was $8 a Tezo, which was great in 21.
Yeah.
It ain't that now. So it's hard. I think it's quite big. It's quite hard for a long-term sort of crypto artist. You see things drop there to keep your momentum. I think you've got to find it beyond the immediate gains if you're going to do it all, you know.
find that deeper purpose, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's always people making money, but yeah, I think you should just, I mean, like I say, I've always been a bit of a blockchain butterfly. I think you go where the action is to some extent, you know.
100%. I really love this evacuation songs piece as well. Just the detail on it, man. Like you got like people running, and then there's a train running through them and a highway running through them. I don't know if you want to give us a little bit of background on that one, just because I have so many questions and there's so much happening. It's wild. And the people are actually big, giant robots being controlled by somebody in their VR headsets. I don't know.
Well, that was actually created
cool.
for my mate's band, the Winona Riders, with a Y or with an I. Anyway, they're a British band. And I thought I had a sort of vision for it, and then I thought I'd make it a bit Mobius-like, you know, the background deserty stuff. It's quite Mobius-esque. And a lot of it actually relates to their songs, like Little Girl, but I just thought I quite like the idea of movement and stillness. Like it's impossible movement, you know, the roads going through the legs. You can't run like that, can you?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just that idea of you know, it's just a surrealist impossibility. And I drew it with a rotring pen, and I used watercolors to color it all, and then scan it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Surrealist. That's the word I was looking for. I was thinking like esoteric a bit, but it's definitely, I like surrealist, and, you know, definitely bends the mind, right? Like you say, it's like defies kind of logic, but at the same time, it looks like it works, you know? Yeah, it's fascinating, man. I'm curious, like when you look at the stuff you mint on Tezos versus Ethereum versus Bitcoin, there is a bit of a through line, definitely. I guess they all have, or not all, but a lot of them do have that kind of surrealist approach, and definitely very clear that it's made by your pen, which I think is awesome, because that's becoming harder and harder to be able to tell these days. But what kind of inspires your art? And if you do have any differences as far as like which art you mint on which platform, I'd love to hear like how you think through that process.
I generally have a kind of idea of what I'm going to be doing. Sometimes I'll go it because there's a community event. Like I've done pieces on Tezos. One of the last pieces really was because of community events. I quite like that when the whole gang gets together and they're doing it, and you feel like there's a momentum. That's a swaying thing. I think in terms of content, I'm kind of driven to do stuff like I'll either do it like because I need to it's like cathartic, like the meme Xerox interventions it's cathartic. It's because I'm going nuts
Right.
about it all, and I just need to have that release. That's like catharsis. Sometimes I feel need like a commentary, like social commentary. Sometimes I've done some pieces on Lunar Launcher recently, and one on Trio, which are another blockchain Bitcoin platforms, and they are far more about a social commentary about being in a world of digital control and just how it feels to be in the moment. Like, you know, what's the zeitgeist of being in, especially in the UK, under more of a surveillance state than it's ever been. And I think it's a worldwide feeling, you know, really. It's not just the UK, everywhere. So some pieces reflect, and some pieces are just absolute nonsense, just for the hell of it, just fun, you know.
No doubt.
So it kind of alternates.
Yeah, it's all over the place. On the Xerox interventions, you have this one question: does it matter how things are made? And I feel like that's a that's a genuine question in the Web3 space, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I guess, depending what angle you're coming at it from. But it does seem like the human element is less and less prioritized, I guess. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you feel as someone who is, you know, a trained artist who obviously puts a lot of time and thought into your work, with the advent of, you know, AI becoming more and more ubiquitous? And I think, again, to your point, there is a place for blockchain to kind of certify humanity, right? And to kind of verify that this was actually made by a human, and you can purchase it here, and you'll support this human here. And so as the world becomes less and less sure about, you know, when you're actually transacting with a human or talking to a human online, I do think that Bitcoin hopefully will have some solution or be part of a solution that helps us, you know, keep the humans connected to other humans. But what are your thoughts on AI as we kind of wind down here? I know we're reaching the 1 hour mark, but yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and kind of the impact on art broadly, but more specifically the NFT community.
I mean, I can only go from my personal perspective, and I very much had some sort of love-hate relationship with it, more like, no, tolerant to hate relationship, and it bounces between the two. I think in the early days, it seemed so magical and unexplainable, and I think a lot of people were selling it as this magical thing, and it really wasn't. And I think as we move forward in time, it gets easier and easier and quicker to do it. That you've got in-app. I mean, look at Grok and things like that. It's there. So all that magic and skill that you told me about, which was magical, is now defunct. And I think that's the worrying thing about it, that it will permeate everything. So I think trying to fight it and I'm not angry about it, and I don't hate it anymore. I think trying to fight it's like shouting at the tide, or, you know, keep out. It's pointless. It's just a madman on a beach. So you've got to accept it, and I think you've got to place yourself within it. And I think there are highly creative people who go beyond just using it as a clicking button in a social app. There's an ability and a thread for artists to be highly creative utilizing it. However, I think it should be treated almost in parallel to the traditional arts. I think you should have an appreciation and a school for the traditional arts, and I think you should have a parallel for AI-based arts. I like to preserve the former, but I think the latter can be an art in itself, but I don't think you should confuse the two. And a lot of it seems to be around misdirection, especially how it's used in the media, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we're seeing it on the political side being used for misinformation and kind of misleading people, to your point. And then on the art side, I was very skeptical initially. I will give credit to TP, our friend, NFTP, who's helped bring me into kind of a more appreciation and tolerance might be the word. I like that word for the AI kind of use case in art. And even especially those that have the art background, like TP and others, who have seen this as like a tool to kind of accent their art and really help them kind of bring it into a different place while still acknowledging, their own creativity and having their own kind of influence on it. So I think it's the cheap people that are just kind of like putting in random prompts and throwing it on the blockchain and calling it art. That's where obviously I have a lot of concern around that. But for those who are using it with intention and impact and have a kind of more honest, I would say, and transparent kind of use case for it, then like you say, I think it has its place. But the market is the market, and as things evolve, I do think that eventually the priority is still going to be on like guaranteeing that this was made by a human and wanting a way to verify that. And we have seen, you know, whether it's I think it's WorldCoin and there's a couple others that are all about kind of proof of humanity in this new world of robots and, you know, bots basically running things online. So I'm in favor of that, but I wonder whether blockchain will kind of have the solutions or not. And I don't know. It seems to be both part of the problem and part of the solution these days, but I digress. So as we wind down, I'm curious, you know, what do you think it's going to take for NFTs to really, you know, like you say, hit that bull cycle again, or maybe just become kind of a cool option for artists more specifically? Maybe the broader market's going to take time to kind of adopt it and appreciate it. But one could say right now is really the time for artists to get involved and get their work on the chain while it's relatively quiet, while it's cheaper. You can take the time to learn it, understand it, get some pieces on there, tell your friends and family and collectors about it, and maybe you get some collections there. But we'll be ready when that bull market comes, when that cycle comes back around. You'll at least understand how it works. So yeah, what do you think it's going to take for artists to kind of be more open to it and actually take the initiative to kind of put their art on the blockchain, you know, in the short term?
I think 100% right there. It's a good time to do that now, to experiment, to mint things, even to collect things that aren't as valued. I think we're going to go through a very interesting time. I think we were in the domain of masterful platforms, you know, going back to 21, OpenSea being the big mothership, or mother something, and then but now we're going into an age now of independent coding. It's never been easier to do, and that is through AI. You know, it's good as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's more like cottage industries, and I think artists could potentially do it themselves more. They could tokenize their work, utilize it for more of a collector base, staying in touch with people. And I think it's, you know, blockchain isn't going away by any means.
That's for sure.
And, you know, if anything, it's going to come on far more with, you know, in a sort of nation state way, coming down. And I think it's a good time now for artists to just play with it themselves and utilize it for their own sort of creative dalliances, really.
Nice.
Yeah.
And speaking to a little bit of the dystopian surveillance state, which we're all watching creeping over us, do you think there is a place for the NFT market specifically to kind of help create a kind of digital sovereignty, if you will, and more importantly, an ability for us to communicate without censors, without, I guess there'd still be surveillance because it's all available to everybody, but at the very least, no one can kind of tell us what we can and can't put on there and what we can and cannot buy on the blockchain. So in theory, my hope would be that data sovereignty as a concept starts to take off, which I've been talking about since we launched the very first episode of this show, and the idea that blockchain can play a very important role in a future where we all are more conscious of our data and trying to keep it actually under our own ownership, right? Do you think that that's going to be kind of a future that NFTs have a very important part to play in?
I bloody hope so, and I think it's great that you've been thinking about that for a while. I think, you know, we've got things like the digital IDs coming in for Europe and Australia, but who knows what that will mean for your transacting. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not that sort of techie, but I really think it's important that people consider it, that to have their own sovereignty, and I'll leave it in the hands of more wise people like yourself to manifest that.
Nice. I like it. Well, we're working on it. I'm definitely going to keep bringing it up. Like, blockchain can bring data sovereignty. We can stop, you know, using these platforms that literally profit off of our existence, right? Like, they're taking everything from our phone. They're taking our uses. They're taking our pictures of our family and friends. And all of this stuff is just being monetized and sold to the highest bidder. There is a solution, and it's blockchain. There's blockchain social media. There's blockchain transacting, obviously art collecting, which is what we're talking about and focusing on. All of these things being done on chain can help improve the data situation that we find ourselves in, I think. So thank you for entertaining that with me. What's next for ArtSerge? What are you working on? What can we look forward to in 2026? And how can people tap in with you?
Oh, just, I don't know, Twitter, Instagram, the usuals, just ArtSerge.
Nice.
I'm just going to be keeping my eye on things. I'm going to be networking with people, seeing what's happening. I don't have any big, I've got maybe one collection coming up, working with a chat, but that's still in, I don't want to talk about it till it's in a good place to launch it.
Can you share the chain it's going to be on, at least? Which blockchain you're going to go on? Or you don't know yet?
Probably Bitcoin.
Okay.
So yeah, and just stay in the loop, find out what the artists in the communities are doing, and trying to keep doing that. I think at the same time, just not being chained to anything. I think about how just keep moving it forward. Do physicals. It's not what you your blockchain can do. No, ask not what you can do for your blockchain, but what your blockchain can do for you. Because we're primarily creatives, not slaves to a blockchain.
That's just it, exactly.
I'll just keep my avenues open,
Nice. Yeah, TP calls it blockchain agnostic as well as another way. Blockchain butterfly is a more creative, maybe way to say it. But yeah, that's what we're all about. And I think that all these different chains are kind of building out their own solution. We didn't even touch on Solana because, frankly, I don't think the art community in Solana is super active, especially just in the last year or two. It's kind of all meme coins and crypto trading over there, but they do have a platform. Shout out to exchange.art. Have you done anything on Solana before we wrap? No,
never done anything on Solana.
Okay, cool.
So that was happy.
No issues. It's interesting platform, but I do think when it comes to art, Bitcoin has the clear kind of immutability argument, I think, for sure. Ethereum has the original OG smart contracts and definitely the largest kind of user base and developer base, so they're not going anywhere. And then, as we've mentioned, Tezos has got the real grassroots, art-loving, devoted, and kind of well-connected community at the base. So I think those three are the ones to really look at when it comes to being an artist on the blockchain. And I really thank you, Serge, for walking through all these amazing platforms and different projects that you've put on all these different blockchains. It's been very enlightening. Again, anyone can find ArtSerge's work across the different blockchains on Object or on OpenSea or on Magic Eden with the Ordinals or on Gamma under ArtSerge, ArtSerge. And he's also on the Twitter and the Instagram under that as well. Thank you so much, Serge. Appreciate your time. And we'll be back with everyone next month. And thank you for tuning in. Until next time, we'll catch you in the metaverse. Peace out. Pew, pew.